All right, the Bucks. It is Talking Buccaneers with me, Fumane. The start of the season is at hand, and teams are thinking about who's going to score the goals for us. And yeah, so this is why I'm here. I want us to think about, who's going to score the goals for Orlando Pirates. And I mean, the simple answer for you guys, I know, is going to be, we've got Tshegofatso Mabasa. So why are we even thinking about that? But I wish it were that simple. It's not always that simple. I think there are a lot of factors that are going to be at play with regards to that. I mean, we know that, you look at, 2 seasons back now, we had, again, someone who was a top goal scorer for us in Munapule Saleng, but rolling over into the following season after that, which is the previous season, which we just came from, he sort of just disappeared. And I mean, there's a lot of factors around that, but I think one of those things is that, as you become a very threatening player, a very good player, a lot of people will then focus their attention in trying to study what you do and preparing more for you, right? And I think this is why at times you will not see players have consecutive very good seasons or goal-scoring seasons, is because a lot of attention is then spent in trying to stop someone. A lot more other factors, to be honest. But yeah, I wish it were that simple to just say Tshegofatso Mabasa again is going to bang 20 goals, and he very well could. I mean, I actually even back him that he's going to score a lot of goals for us, but I think we still need more goals than Tshegofatso Mabasa's goals, and that's what I want to think about. I want to think about the whole, striking department for us, and just stuff around that, how we are supplementing it in scoring the goals, not only in just, giving them the passes to score, but also chipping in with other goals outside of just the guys that are going to score for us. So, I mean, let's start here. The strikers at Orlando Pirates, Tshegofatso Mabasa, top goal scorer last season, very good at putting the ball in the back of the net with both feet, also in the air, sniffs out space, he knows where to be, makes fantastic runs, just a born goal scorer, goal poacher, is what you might call him. That's what he is. He just knows where the back of the net is. We've got other strikers at Orlando Pirates. I wish they were like, Tshegofatso Mabasa in that particular quality and that attribute of just putting the ball in the back of the net. But the second one, I think, in the packing order, and there's a lot of conversation and argument to say who is actually the head coach's preferred striker. Some people have thought it's Evidence Makopa, because we have seen that in big games, Makopa is the one who will get the nod. The big games being Mamelodi Sundowns, to be fair. I think that's the biggest one that we play. But I think we're going to see maybe a bit of that spill over into the CAF Champions League, provided we go through Jwaneng, which I back us to this time. But, we're going to play a lot of big games in that sense, very important, tough opponents. And in those kind of games, we've seen at times that the head coach has favored Makopa, which you might then say, Makopa's, Jose Rivero's tactical piece. I think, with the evolution of football, we've seen that striking department, that striking position rather, has become just so much more than putting the ball in the back of the net. The head coach said it himself, I remember in one of the interviews, to say that, I think he was actually pushing back at this criticism that often follows Makopa from his fan base. Of course, even the journalists will ask that sort of stuff, but I think journalists will sometimes have their ear on the ground listening to what the fans are saying, the discontent amongst ourselves as the fan base of Orlando Pirates, myself included. We're going to have these conversations, and we will hammer Makopa because he's not what you might call a conventional striker, or maybe conventional striker isn't the right one, but a striker who's easy to the eye because you want your striker to put the ball in the back of the net. And the head coach sort of was pushing back against this idea to say there's so much more in the game that you can't quantify really as an average folk like myself to say this is what Orlando Pirates does. But if you understand what the game plan is, which the guys working at Orlando Pirates will know, they appreciate Makopa even more than we do. And so he was sort of pushing back against this thing, and people have often then come to the conclusion that they think Makopa, if he could score goals, he's by far Jose Rivero's favorite striker. And the other person we've got, obviously, is Lepasa, just sort of moving on and not dwelling too much on that, is we've got Lepasa. Lepasa, I mean, there's a bit of a question mark hanging around him. I think there's a question mark hanging around him. We haven't heard or seen anything to draw the conclusion that he's struggling with fitness. And yet, all of the 4 games I think we played in our preseason friendlies in Spain, which were televised, we've seen him in the team sheet, even doing some media duties with Thomas Mlambo, and yet he's not played. He's not gotten an opportunity to play. And some people, I think, have very lazily, if that's a word, very lazily said that it's because you only play with one striker at Orlando Pirates. So, I mean, if you're playing one for 45 minutes, you can only play the other for 45 minutes. And it's like, but there are 4 games. And you've had people like Mufukeng miss 1 or 2. And it wasn't as simple as just the one will play this game and then the other. And we've had like 3 options in other positions, just like we do in centre forward. And yet, Lepasa has not gotten a chance to play. And it's like, is there something to read there? Because, I mean, if it's pre-season, even if maybe he's not doing some stuff right in training, it's like the coach is going to give him, and I don't even think that's the reason. I don't think it's a case of Lepasa not doing the right things in training. I think this is a guy who's been under this head coach for 2 full seasons. Well, with the exception of 6 months out on loan at SuperSport United, but he knows very well what the head coach is about. And so we've then read into these things to say, well, what is going on there? Is a move on the cards for him, and why did he travel to Spain? Or is there like a thing where while they're in Spain, maybe fall out? All of these things, we can all conclude when you see something like Lepasa being in preseason and he just doesn't play at all. And so there's a cloud, I'm saying this to say there's a cloud question mark hanging over him to say, is he even going to be an Orlando Pirates player come 21st September 2024? Remains to be seen, right? At the moment, he is an Orlando Pirates player. He's even done some advertising of the kit and all of that stuff. And so he's the other option for Orlando Pirates to score the goals. Now, here's what I want to position this like. I want to say that, we know that we're going to get 20 from Tshegofatso Mabasa. How do we know? It's because of how he positions himself, how he makes runs, how he sniffs out where the ball's going to be, and also his finishing ability. That kind of player, even though, he might have a rut here and there, but because of just the way that he moves in the box and stuff like that, eventually he's going to score a lot of goals. Whether you like it or not, that statement, I can actually say that, to say he's going to score goals because of the way that he plays and because of the finishing ability that he's got. If we're going to be creating chances, which we do a lot, then Tshegofatso Mabasa is going to score goals. It's a different conversation with Makopa, because I think Makopa is a nomadic striker, is what you call a nomadic striker. He's someone who likes to travel on the football pitch. He doesn't stay where he should be at times, in an offensive sense, not in the... Well, I mean, there's conversation there to say, tactically, yes, he does free up other people and create spaces for people and all of that sort of thing. But that's priority for Makopa, rather than, him being in those goal-scoring positions. And so his being nomadic is the reason why I think Makopa doesn't score a lot, obviously. He doesn't score a lot of goals, but it doesn't again, sort of undermine what he does holistically on the pitch. He does a lot. He does a lot of even defensive work when we are out of possession and we are trying to, press the opposition and win the ball back. He's someone that obviously is good at that, very obviously. A lot of energy, very tactically astute in that sense. But he's not going to score a lot. And then you've got Lepasa, who I think for me, Lepasa is quite, how do you say this? I think Lepasa is quite, I want to say explosive, but I don't think it's painting the picture that I wanted to paint to you. When I say explosive, I think you're going to think about speed, which he does have. He does have, some speed. But I think he's quite, I don't know how to describe this, but someone who you can get either extremes with him, where he can have these games where he'll score a hat trick, and he's got the potential for that, where he'll score a hat trick, but he's also got the other end of the spectrum to where he can have a stinker, where he's just skying everything, right? He's just putting everything above the bar, and it's just like, hey man, like what's happening with you? Are you fine? Kind of thing, where it's just like, hey, what's happening? Where did that striker go? So he's like that, Lepasa, for me. He's like, you don't know, you're not very confident of him, and yet when he's on it, he's got like a lot of quality, right? And I think for me, he's actually a momentum player. I think what we saw last season was that if he's like doing well, he just goes on this run, which was beautiful to witness last season. But I think at the back of your mind, you thought that he lacks just a bit of quality, like just a bit of class is what he's lacking. He's got everything, the tools, the hard working, the determination and all of that. And I mean, I'm sure he trains all of these things, these finishing. He's way better than all of us, don't get me wrong. But I think at that level, at Orlando Pirates, where it's now class, it's not just the talent, it's now the class that then separates Lebogile Mofokeng, Maswanganyi, Dlamini. Dlamini like oozes class, like special talent kind of player. I think that's what Tshegofatso Mabasa is. He's a special finisher. That's what Lebogile Mofokeng is. He's a special talent. Kabelo Dlamini, special talent. Talente Mbatha, special talente. And Olisa Nda, that's the thing. Those are the margins at Orlando Pirates. And I'm not saying you need 11 of those. You at least need 3 that are going to carry them, which are the grit, determination kind of guys. But I mean, in that striking position, you really would love to have a bit of quality, especially if you've got Makopa, who can be that, that workaholic for you. But then you need another finisher. But I think, Zakhele Lepasa as a third striker, really sometimes we are too spoiled as Orlando Pirates fans. I think Zakhele Lepasa as a third striker, honestly, this is a guy who's starting for most teams. And we sometimes are too hasty. Well, yeah, we're too flippant and hasty and rash to be suggesting that, hey, get rid of Lepasa. Because the question then that follows that is, okay, who are you going to get? And when you go and get that player, usually the players that you're going to name that are better than Lepasa should come to Orlando Pirates and be the first striker. And the problem is you've got Tshegofatso Mabasa. And I mean, cool, you could get people like, Cupido, which is a shout for me actually, that, should we get rid of Zakhele Lepasa for this or that reason? I mean, if he decides to stay, that's fine. I'm okay with having him as our third striker, second striker, whatever you want to view it as. But I think if we then release him, then I think we should be going for a 23, 24-year-old, 22-year-old, actually Cupido somewhere there. I think he's in that bracket. Someone who, obviously, we've seen he's massively talented at Cape Town Spurs, but also still has, some ground to make up in the sense of being the talisman for Orlando Pirates, leading the Pirates team as the striker. He's got some grounds to make up in that regard, though the talent is there. And yeah, I would then get him for that reason. However, I think what actually should be happening at Orlando Pirates in terms of the goal scoring department. Because, okay, maybe before I even get to that, here's the last thing I'm going to say with regards to the strikers is that, if I'm getting 20 goals for Tshegofatso Mabasa, then I need 10 to 15 from these guys, maybe 15 from the second striker and maybe 10 from these guys. Because think of it this way, 30 games, how many goals do you want Tshegofatso Mabasa to score? Ideally 20, probably 15 he's going to score, right? Which, if you say 30 games, 15 goals, let's put that at 1-0, right? 1-0, you're going to win 1-0, 15 games. Okay, now you need 15 other games to win 1-0 all the other games, right? And some of these games you're going to draw and stuff like that. So you actually need more than one goal and stuff like that. That's where we've come up with the numbers to say, okay, then you need another striker to score 15, another striker to score 10, and then maybe you need a shared responsibility among the other guys. Maybe you need 5 goals from set pieces. You need at least 5 penalties. Set pieces being corners? Can we get 2 or 3 free kicks? And that sort of thing, and you can go on and sort of picture it and try and map it, but really you can't. It's going to be left to fate to have it roll out to how it's going to pan out. But you can actually try and think of these numbers, right? To say, at least if we can expect this much from this player and that player and that player. And where I've landed with that kind of thinking is, I've landed at, let's give Tshegofatso Mabasa 15 goals in the league, is where I'm talking about. 15 goals, Tshegofatso Mabasa. Can we get 10 from either one of Makopa and or Zakhele Lepasa? If we get 10 from one, let's get 5 to 7 from the other, right? But then you then need 5 from Munapule Saleng, which you actually can easily get 10 from Saleng. You then need 5. If you're getting 10 from Saleng, then you're easing the responsibility on for me, Lebogile Mofokeng. But again, this is something I've spoken about on this platform to say, if Saleng is not playing, who's the other goal threat for Orlando Pirates in the current system that we play? And you're playing Dlamini, then that responsibility of goal scoring solely falls on Tshegofatso Mabasa, but it also means that Mofokeng has to shoulder some of that responsibility of being a goal scorer, because you can't have Tshegofatso Mabasa as the only goal threat on the pitch. You also then need, Mofokeng if you're playing with Dlamini, because Dlamini is not a goal threat. He's a chance creator, or sort of like, yeah, he is actually a chance creator, even if maybe it's this pass before the final pass. But when you've got Saleng, you've got 2 incredible goal threats to say, we can expect to score 2 or 3 goals in a game. And if we don't score, one of them is going to score, and you're safeguarded in that way. And this is talking to how I think actually Orlando Pirates should be playing, which then even further the layer would be that if you're playing Saleng, then it calls for a more defensive right back, because Saleng is an out-and-out wide winger. He's not really an inverted winger. Well, he inverts in the sense that he's left-footed and he'll come inside, but I think his starting position is not in those central areas or in those like half spaces where you'll sometimes find someone like Mofokeng who operates more of like a 10 rather than a winger. But I think even, Mofokeng, there's a shout to say, he does very well actually starting out wide, coming in field. But that's another conversation. But I do think that, with Saleng, if you want to have a goal threat, which I'm actually going to get to, Gilberto in a second. But I think when you've got Saleng, you've got another goal threat again, which is fantastic. But it then changes a bit of how you set up to say you need Rile to be part of the double 10s, right? With Maswanganyi and Rile, and then you're going to have Hoto being the one who's the wide player, the wide fullback who goes all the way to give us the width on the left. But then that means then to have that 3 at the that cover of 3 at the back, that means the right back then becomes the 1. And hence I thought that, the Keegan Johannes again was a fantastic linking. And I still think there's some players we can still go out and get to give us that. We've been linked with Dino van Rooyen, which it really flips my whole narrative that I've just made now on its head to say we're going for another sort of offensive fullback. But for me, I thought we need a rather more like conservative fullback, like a right back who can actually form a three, even like when we're changing shape and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, like I'm actually losing train of thoughts, but let's go back to Saleng. I think, with Saleng, he's the other goal threat. But with him, again, the caveat is that you're changing a bit of how you play. In comes Gilberto to say, he looks like someone who's very good in the half spaces, the little pockets and this and that. And we saw in preseason that, he can finish as well. We saw one goal, but you can really learn a lot from just that one goal to say, okay, the way that he does things, the way that he moves, even scoring with his weaker left foot, there's a lot to be excited about there to think, he can actually finish chances. If we can have him finishing, and then it kind of solves this whole thing about, if you're playing Saleng, then you have to change because Saleng, you want him to be out wide, not inside, and that sort of thing. And Gilberto, if he can move in those be able to get on the same wavelength with Mufokeng and Maswanganyi with all of that bamboozling movement where people are running beyond each other, someone's coming in, someone's going out, and all of that stuff. And if Gilberto can get on that wavelength with them, I think he's deadly if he also has got a finish on him. His numbers at Petro Luanda don't suggest that he's like your goal scorer, right? But I think sometimes what he's done at Petro Luanda has prepared him for this point, and now Orlando Pirates is like the springboard for him to a different level. I think it's the same with Saleng. I like to reference Mohamed Salah, who's been a great case study to say that the system actually, when it is set up for you to flourish, you can go on to greater heights. And that for me could even be the case for someone like a Gilberto, where he comes to Orlando Pirates and maybe he's around better players now, with all due respect to his former teammates. No disrespect really. But maybe he's around a better environment, whatever, set up for him. And it's like, we're going to fit you exactly into this part, which is going to launch you to be able to even score goals now. And that would be great, because really we can't have Saleng being the other goal threat for us. We really need guys high up there. And again, this even is showing how much of a responsibility Mufokeng is going to have to shoulder, to say, dude, you're going to also have to chip in with the goals. And Mufokeng is very well capable of that. I think so anyway. He loves to actually dribble inside and take shots on. And again, I love to say I don't discourage that. I actually encourage that, because we need that as a club. We need him to chip in with the goals if he's going to be playing with Dlamini on the other side. But Gilberto then comes in as someone who eases more of that pressure on Saleng and Mufokeng, and he can be the other one who shoulders to say, I'm going to also chip in with my 10 in all competitions. In my first season, can I score 10 goals and then springboard and go on to the 15s and all of that stuff? I think that's the ideal scenario for Orlando Pirates. So what do I think should happen in the striking department to wrap this video? Do I think Orlando Pirates should go out and get a striker? Only if Orlando Pirates is going to release, Zakhele Lepasa. Because again, something that I'm just going to drop also is that Gilberto actually can do 9. We saw him a bit even in Spain, but even in his former team, you see him doing bits in different positions. And he's obviously a different kind of 9, maybe not quite but something maybe similar to what we had in Chukwamanja, in someone who's going to get involved a bit more with the play and stuff, and maybe even more direct than Chukwamanja Gilberto. But he's going to be more involved in the play. He's not just going to stand there and be a finisher. But he can do 9. So it's to say that I don't think we really need a striker at Orlando Pirates. I think we do have enough in that position. With the 3, that is if we don't release Zakhele Lepasa. With the 3, I think we've got enough. But the responsibility then has to be shouldered around, everyone else. The centre backs, Olisanda has to now score a few more headers. Tapelo Koki will have to score the penalties and the headers, and Bomteato and all of them. Can they give us, some goals when it comes to set pieces and all of that stuff? Because otherwise, then Tshegofatso Mabasa is going to have a tough time. We're going to need Saleng. Mofokeng will then have to Maswanganyi, all of that. So it's like a collective thing, which I think Gilberto for me and Mofokeng are going to be the secondary goal scorers alongside Saleng. And yeah, that's the video, guys. That's the thought. Tell me what you think. I know I have these crazy ideas sometimes, thinking about them. And the reason I put them on here is so that we can actually engage each other. So I'll be happy for you to call me out on, I'm not going to say call me out on what, but yeah, call me out on whatever you want to call me out on. And yeah, let's have a conversation. Otherwise, up the mighty Bucks. Cheers. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video from Talking Buccaneers. If you did, please hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all our future content.